There it is. Otter.ai is what Victor is using. So, a message just popped up on the chat.
Yeah.
Otter.ai.
Well, I guess I'm gonna move that over here.
Is there a Victor Mansky in the meeting here?
Yeah, he's usually here.
Huh?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Everybody got quiet. It kind of scared me because it's right at the moment I hit record on YouTube.
And nothing's coming out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can hear you guys.
Oh, there's Wolf. Man, we got everybody here.
Well, it's funny how this AI sometimes makes mistakes. So I'm doing multiple projects. It tends to think things are like universal, and it applies things to other projects than the one that I'm working on. So I have
Right.
to correct it and tell, no, my person I'm working with down in Texas is not the person I'm working with in Michigan. But once it learns that, it's pretty cool. It then plugs it into the letters and stuff that you're writing, and I'm just having a blast with playing with this.
Just like a drunk intern, as soon as they learn and stop drinking, they're okay.
Yeah, they seem to be a little brown nosy, like every time you say something, it's like, yes, good. Yeah, that's exactly right. You're so smart. Like that's the best thing. And you're like, I don't know. I kind of wanted more of a unbiased opinion. Don't treat me like
Well,
everything I say is genius.
I worked as a team lead on a group that had been in place for like decades. These guys were like contractors and sitting in the same seats forever. And I came in, and I just had to manage them and stuff, and they knew everything, and so it was really tough for me to I had a discussion, I asked them questions, and they're like, yeah, okay, but they wouldn't really listen to what I said. So there's the other extreme, right?
And the people just keep showing up.
Yeah, I found the best way to keep it on track is to tell it to make a plan and then like make a markdown file and write up a plan and then don't do anything yet, just work on a plan and then close it, open it again and say, okay, read this plan and answer me this, just kind of keep resetting its context and make it work off of something written.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm to the point where I've just told it all kinds of information and it just keeps pulling the information for, things I didn't expect, so it gave me suggestions on things I hadn't even known about. And, that's really helpful, very, very good thing. It tends though to then remember stuff in a way that it thought it was interpreting it. And you have to go back and tell it, no, that interpretation is not right. Here's the corrected view of that. So I've had it set up like timelines to, set when certain things happen, and then a financial, like a run rate for how much to spend each month, and it's really great at that kind of work.
Gib, which one are you using? Are you using a pay one or is it free?
Well, I started using Chat GPT, and it quickly got to the point where it said, "You've used your allocation for the day," or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I switched over to Google's Gemini, and I find that's really, really good. It's been very deep. And then I started paying for the extra to do videos. I don't know. I've done some interesting, fun videos just for laughs.
Mm.
I should show you one of those videos, but
We're going to get started in 2 minutes. Just waiting for the people to trickle in.
I've set my timer.
Yeah. Good. Good, because I can get distracted real easy.
Yeah, I've
I
also
have a
done
con-
some pictures, some graphics and stuff, and had a picture printed up with one of my graphics on it. Yeah, just there's just so much you can do.
Yeah. For when I have conference calls for work, I always have to get logged in like 10 minutes early because before I know it, it's 5 after the hour, and I've forgotten that I have a meeting.
Yeah, I do the same thing. It's like right when I'm thinking about it, I better do it. Otherwise,
Yeah, just bring up the meeting platform and wait for other people to show up. You'll look like you're really attentive, right?
I was going to share a picture, but I guess you can't do that. You disallowed that.
I can let you, but we're gonna
Yeah,
get
well, it sounds
started
like
right
we're
away.
about to get started with the meeting. Maybe we'll hold off on.
Yeah, hang on a second.
Jim likes to keep the riffraff down,
Eh,
and I don't blame him.
Oh, speaking of riffraff, somebody's running a vacuum cleaner.
I thought you meant me.
No. All right, let's see. It's oh man, it's close enough. Well, all right. Now it's 6:40. Welcome to the April 2026 mug meeting. We've got a big meeting tonight. A lot of exciting things, and looks like we got a nice turnout, so that's really cool. I'm going to get right into the good stuff. We'll take care of the business things in a couple of minutes. But probably the most important thing we're going to do tonight, and if you saw the announcement that I sent out, we have come up with an award. It's been 2 years since we lost Craig Maloney, and man, I think about him all the time. And several months ago, like 6 months ago, we came up with an idea of a way to honor Craig because he meant so much to Mug, and I think Mug meant a lot to him. So we decided to come up with an award, and we've made it in his honor. And every year we're going to award it to some poor soul who we think deserves it. The award is the Craig S. Maloney Award for Excellence in Community Contributions. That's a mouthful, and boy, we workshopped that name to death. We spent most of a board meeting coming up with the exact words we wanted. That's what we came up with, and I like it. The recipient receives bragging rights that they won the award, and they get a really nice trophy. And I'm gonna reveal who it is in just a second. And we do have Craig's wife, Jody, here. Jody, wave your hand. There she is. Haven't seen you in a while, and it's always nice to see you. So here we go. I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag. The first winner of the award for excellence is Michael Lucas. Michael, wave, raise your hand, whatever you got to do. I don't know that there's I'm certain there's not a better person we could have awarded this to, the inaugural award.
I would have had several suggestions had you asked, but I wasn't consulted.
We weren't asking you. We were telling you,
Yes.
and you have no choice. Not only did they get bragging rights, they get this beautiful trophy that we had made up, especially for the occasion. And Michael, if you'll get it up and hold it up for people to take a look at. I don't know if you can read that, but it's basically it's got the old mug logo. Craig S. Maloney Award for Excellence in Community Contribution, Michigan Bang / Group, awarded to Michael W. Lucas. And Michael, you've decoded the code next to your name, right?
No comment. That would be telling.
Yeah, okay. That's the year. This is 2026. Of course, it's in hex because we can't do anything the easy way.
No.
So, uh, man, I've been looking forward to this for many months. I think it was like October we started talking about this, and as soon as I brought up the idea, everybody jumped on board with their approval of it. And then I talked with Jody, I don't know, a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, and let her know what was going on, and she was on board with it. And we thought, well, let's do it then. We had to let Michael know ahead of time because, of course, we wanted him to show up. And I wanted to send him the award so he could show it off.
Jim,
Yes,
do you mind if I say a couple things?
I would love it if you did.
So, I know several of you, and it's nice to see you guys. I do miss you all. But Craig loved Mug. He didn't just like Mug, he liked the people that he was with. So I think, I'm going to cry, I'm sorry. I think he'd be so pleased and so humbled to know that he touched some people's lives and to know that his legacy will be out there. And I know for a fact he would be over the moon to know that the first person that received this award was Michael. So, Michael, congratulations. And I can't thank Mug enough for this honor for him. And it means a lot to me. And it would mean if he were here, he wouldn't know how to handle it. I don't know how to express it, but thank you so much.
Yeah, well, I think like I said, we couldn't have come up with a better recipient for the first one. We've got ideas. There was a little bit of competition, but it was a distant second place. We've got more ideas though for the coming years. Michael, did you want to say something?
Well, one, Jody, thank you. Craig would have absolutely melted down right now. It would have lost it. I am deeply honored. What Jim did not mention was that he contacted me to say that Mug had come up with an award and named it after Craig, and they wanted to give it to me, and he did this on April 1st. And as someone who has literally written entire books as April Fool's pranks, I felt really upset that he got me. I believed him.
Oh, we got you.
Until I said, wait a minute. But then I realized Jim would absolutely prank me, but he wouldn't do it with Craig's name.
No.
And that's the thing. I mean, Craig would have absolutely pranked me. Because the truth is, Craig really was about community. He was about people. He had all kinds of different parts of his life, and Mug was one of them, but there were web comics he loved, there were game groups and game designers he loved, and he was 100% in on every single one of them. I don't know how he had time to be married.
Well, he's married to a physicist, so it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
You had some kind of quantum thing going on then.
There you go.
Because he was utterly about community, and there's something he had a real knack of. And when you first, this is a Unix group, so I'm going to talk Unix, but it has to do with whatever it is you do. When I first got into BSD Unix back in the day, I thought, ooh, I want to be a programmer. I want to learn how to hack file systems and all that. And the truth is, that's not me. It's not how my brain works. But the thing is, if you want to help your community, what you need to do is do the thing that it is you do, but do it for your people. I mean, I'm one of nature's writers. That's what I do. That's how my brain is wired. So I write for my people. And Craig really had a mastery of that. He did the things that he did for his people. And you know, the truth is I even have it on my website that I don't want awards, because book industry awards are about building your career, and I can't use them. I don't have a use for them. But this is meaningful. And I think if I hold it backwards, since it's transparent, the lettering will show up the right way around and the rest of you can read it.
It's backwards.
But, you know, this is meaningful.
Yeah.
This is a real thing from a real person who he actually was doing real work for all of these people that he sincerely loved. And this I will treasure. So I've had my award, and I'm not going to update my website though, because then who knows what people are going to do. But this is mine. It's meaningful, and I sincerely thank you. And truly, I would have had better candidates. Ask next time. But thank you.
We'll consult next time and see who should get it next.
Jim,
good. Yes.
Any chance I could say a little thing?
Sure.
Craig was my friend, and he was a profoundly good and admirable human being. I sometimes joke that I wish I was the man my dog thinks I am. Craig was that man. I aspire to be the kind of man that Craig was, always kind, always helpful, always knowledgeable, and when he didn't know, ready to say so. Craig was everything, in my experience, that is good in a person. And I am so glad that we have the opportunity to honor him. And I think that it's just that much more so that the person we are tying that to first is Michael Lucas. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have a lot of rules about this award, but the one rule we agreed on very early on is it's the board of directors is not entitled to get the award. This is not about us. This is about you guys and the people that help us month after month. You know, Michael, we can always count on him to give us a presentation. In fact, I think you do. We're ready for you whenever you're ready.
We'll talk.
Yep. But at least once a year, sometimes twice a year, he's here to feed us his wisdom, and yeah, and he was good friends with Craig, and yeah.
I forgot two things I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Didn't make it in my notes, but I was in the car and said, "Oh, these are two things I need to say." One, Craig somehow bought a copy of my first gaming book back in 1995 and had kept it all these years. And at one of the mug meetings, he brought it for me to sign, which is one of the trippiest experiences I have had at any technical event. And two, this really is lovely. It's also kind of heavy.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting shape. And I think, I'm not sure yet, but how would you folks feel if in, the last Get Commit Murder novel, if this made an appearance as a blunt instrument?
That's a blunt instrument, all right.
It's definitely a blunt instrument.
Yeah.
So if the group is cool with that,
I'm not going to speak for the group, but I personally would love it.
Sounds good.
if people object, please let me know. Because I
So yeah,
laugh, but respect is also important.
yeah. Well, I'm so glad we can we can do this at all, and then that you are our first recipient.
Thank you.
So yeah, yeah. And Jody, thank you for coming. Really appreciate it, and it was really nice talking to you. And we do those board meetings every month. You're welcome to come.
Yeah, do they have those steaks that Dave make?
Oh yeah, Dave's still manning the grill.
Yeah,
One of the
Jody,
perks of being a
we
board
do,
member.
and if we ever run out of room, I'll just throw one of these other guys out. You're in.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
No, that's not even a problem. It's
Yeah, he'll make one of us or two of us sit over at the kids' table. Well, good. Thank you. Um, Again, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Jody. Thank you, Craig. I miss you every day. Um, so I guess we got to get on to the rest of the meeting, huh? I'd rather talk about this all night, but we have other things that we need to get to. Tonight is the second part of tonight is our election for the board of directors. I listed the nominees on the website and in the announcement. Do we have anybody else? Well, let me say I'm Jim McQuillan. I'm nominee. Wolf is nominated. Dave Satwitz. He's talking around here someplace. Justin Triplett. He's here. Joe Ryan, he's our friend out in Lansing. And new to the group this time is Jim Peterson. Jim, wave your hand. We've brought him on. Dick Williams is not retiring. He has just agreed to be the treasurer and still show up at the meetings, but he's just not officially a board member at this point. So with do we have anybody else that would like to be on? And if you would like to be on, then we can hold the election.
Jim, before you move on, can I ask a point of order?
Yes.
Is it within the Michigan rules that your treasurer not be a board member?
It's allowed in the what do you call that document?
Bylaws? The
The bylaws.
Articles of incorporation.
Okay. All right. Yep. Just making sure we're not going down the wrong road.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
The other option was at any time we can vote to expand the board or shrink the board if we want to. There's nothing in the bylaws that say how large the board is. But to make things easy, Dick has agreed to step down from the board, opening up a slot. So if we don't have anybody else who wants to nominate themselves, then we can just go ahead and make a statement that the 6 nominees are filling the 6 positions. If we do have anybody, and I encourage it, then we just have to have an election. So anybody? Okay, to make it sound official, I move that we just vote in en masse the 6 nominees. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
All right. Anybody disagree with that? No? Okay. I guess that's official then. We have a new board. Jim Peterson, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Looking forward to your contribution to the board meetings and our organization. We should probably cover the little the business things. Dave, do you want to talk about membership?
Yeah, membership. Once again, this is a fully open group. Everybody is encouraged, lovingly encouraged to participate without restriction. We hope that we'd like to have 1,000 members here participating. We do have a small need for money. There are a few expenses still. At one time, we had a more substantial need for money in that we had to rent a room. Now we just have to pay YouTube a little bit of money for our meetings, and we have
Meetup. Yeah.
For our meetup. I mean, yeah, we have so we have a few expenses along the way, and so we still have an opportunity for anybody who would like to become a dues paying member. And, membership just has its privileges. You get the feeling of being one of those putting the whole thing on and being part of the in crowd. And one of the benefits is you get to vote for the board of directors. And you just saw how really, really valuable that is. But if you'd like to become a dues paying member, it's $50. Technically, it's $50 a year. But right now we are extending all memberships by 1 month every month. So it's effectively indefinite. If we ever get to a spot where we've run out of money or we have higher expenses, then we'll do something about that then. But you can become a dues paying member through PayPal. You can go to mug.org or contact Dick Williams in person there, and he'll take care of that. You can do it through mug.org.
Did you ever fix up the web page so you can actually make a donation on it?
Ooh, I didn't do that. Did anybody else do that?
I think Dick
I haven't checked this month. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, we should make sure that works. But Dave mentioned some of our expenses. Meetup is one of those expenses. And it's gotten to be something like $180 or $190 every 6 months. And I think its value is diminishing and the price keeps going up. So it renews in July, and we've all been talking about dropping Meetup and going to just a mailing list server. Right now we have Meetup to get the word out, and we have a mailman mailing list to get the word out. What we're talking about doing is going to a single service that we don't actually run. It'll be a hosted service. Justin, what is it called? It's groups.io.
Yeah, groups.io is one of the best options I think we were looking at.
Yeah, we've been looking at that, and I've had a couple of conversations with the support people there to make sure it'll suit our needs. And we can take all of the members from the mailman subscriptions. We have the support. We have discuss, announce, and board, and we can move those all over to groups.io, and the cost is quite a bit less. We've been looking for free solutions, and there just aren't any good ones that we can have. This is not a broadcast list. These lists people can respond to, and the discuss list people can send email to discuss, and several people can respond. And yeah, we don't get a lot of traffic on those lists, but the announce list is especially important. So we're looking at consolidating all of that onto there, and we can copy all the members from Mailman. We can't copy the members from Meetup, and we have something like 960 members on Meetup currently. There's no way to extract those out of there. So the best we can do, I think, is send out announcements asking people to please sign up to the new group. We haven't set up the new groups yet. We're still kind of working that out. But probably by July, we're going to do this so we don't get hit with another $180 bill from them. And we looked at like Google Groups, and that they've got a limit of 50 unless you want to start paying. There's various ways we could do this. Every once in a while somebody will suggest, well, why don't we just set up a Linux box, a Linux instance on Linode? But then somebody's got to manage that. Somebody's got to keep that running and make sure it's up to date with security badges, and it's really much more than we need. While we're at it, we're also looking at moving the Mug website off of WordPress. Right now, it's hosted by A2 Hosting, or what are they called now? Just hosting.com. It's hosted there as a WordPress site, and we're looking at going possibly to Codeberg, which has pages that are similar to GitHub's GitHub pages, where the interface is basically Git, where we can edit the stuff locally and push up updates. So we're kind of looking at that, and that basically that's a job for the new board, right? So we're making some changes. We're trying to streamline and simplify. So you might see some changes, at least as far as the mailing list, in the next couple of months. Did we have other board business?
I got a suggestion I could throw
Yeah.
out there. I just had a friend who was trying to get off of their website platform, and so I did some digging on ChatGPT to see like what the options were, and there was ones like
Yeah.
you're mentioning where you can kind of connect it to Git. But if you want
Yeah.
like a real straightforward front end, you can add people that can be contributors. This card.co is just clean.
What is it? Card.co?
Yeah, it's just really, really easy.
I'll write it down and we'll take a look at it. Is it you pay for it, or is it free, or what?
If you
Also,
want to
I've got
connect
an
it
idea
to a
too.
domain name, then you just throw in like $25 a year.
Yeah, we'd want a domain. We want mug.org to point there.
Yeah,
But that's
no.
one of the questions I have for groups.io is whether we can, do like announce at mug.org and have that be the groups.io list. I haven't asked that question yet. Richard, did you have a thought as
I'm
well?
a member of other groups.io groups.
Joe.
I'm a member of other things hosted on groups.io, and I think that you can have alias emails that do the things.
Yeah, I sort of suspect you can. I haven't confirmed it.
Yeah, we'll have to actually test it out a little bit, but
Yeah, I think we can create as I understand it, we can create a master group and then subgroups. And the master group would be the intersection of all of our groups, or the union, I guess, of all of our groups, or our lists. And the guy said, "Why don't I just go ahead and create an account, a free premium account? I don't know what you get, 7 days or 30 days or whatever. So we can give that a try and see what's possible, and then we can decide then to go with it or not go with it. But we're open to other ideas too."
I got an idea.
Yeah.
The idea is to use MailChimp.
MailChimp is one way. You can send mail out, and that's it.
Right. It's not a two-way conversation, but it
Right.
allows you to send a meeting notice to everybody on the list.
Yeah, but we can do that with there's other ways we can do it that is two-way. Like the announce list, we may not want to take incoming mail, but the discuss list and the board list, we certainly want bidirectional. I had brought up MailChimp, and Justin educated me on that.
yeah, well, I mean, we looked into it a bit, and I've used some similar services, and yeah, those are usually geared towards like really high volumes of email, right? When you want to send
Yeah,
100,000 emails out for marketing purposes,
right.
that's the kind of service you use. Whereas, yeah, groups.io it's used by the Linux Foundation for people that
What
are
is it?
coordinating projects and things like
Yeah.
that. So it's really more of a community thing.
I've got to close my shades. The sun is coming directly in at me now. There we go. It just got dark in here, and I can see.
Another thought is that Meetup has gotten more expensive. And
Yep.
so I can see why people want to dump Meetup. But there has to be a word means of spreading the words about Mug, other than sending emails to your already existing membership. So I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
Meetup
Meetup
is-
did offer us that, but
Yeah.
it's, we used to get like 20 people a month signing up to our Meetup group. I guess they'd find us through Meetup, because it's local in the area. And local doesn't matter so much anymore. But we used to get like 20 a month. Now we get like maybe one. So I don't know if Meetup has lost its ability to attract people, or if it's just something we're doing.
I think it might be something that you're doing, but I can't say for certain, because I do know that there are groups that do get decent turnout using Meetup. And how much does it cost now a month?
It's $180 every 6 months, so $30 a month.
$30 a month. Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's pretty steep.
a bit
Yeah.
steep for us.
So it didn't used to be that expensive. Now I know that Semco
Right.
tried
When we started, I think it was like $90 a month for every 6 months. It's
Semco
doubled.
tried it at one time, but we didn't do it properly, and we got no results from it. But I think that we screwed up the way we did it at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it would be a good thing or not.
I think one of
Well,
the strategies that we want to use is to like also promote our events more on social media and other places so that we can,
Yeah.
work with other groups as well to, attract more outsiders instead of just forming a group.
Yeah. Yeah. Meetup, we just sort of did and let it go. We just left it there to do its own thing. And really, we gotta be more proactive about getting the word out. We do pretty well with 20 or 25 people showing up. I'd like to see 60 people show up every month.
Yeah, one thing that I think is important when you use Meetup, and that is, and maybe you guys are already doing it, so I can't, this is not a criticism, but to exactly state what your meeting is going to be about, what the topic is, and so on and so forth. So that if people want to find out about AI and they see that your meeting is going to be about AI, they'll come to the meeting.
Yeah, I
Just
think we're
saying
pretty
that you're going to have
clear.
a meeting doesn't do it.
Yeah, I think we're pretty clear in our meeting announcement that we send out.
Okay.
And
Um,
is there a fee for the Zoom that you're doing?
yeah, that's Dick. What are we paying for Zoom? Isn't that like 150 a year or something? I don't remember the number. So yes,
Because
we are paying for Zoom.
something cool that just came out is Proton finally came out with their video conferencing solution, and
Oh yeah.
it's awesome.
Um,
There's a cost to it if you want to do it like this.
That's pretty
yeah,
interesting. I think Proton also does some mailing groups, so maybe
they do. Yeah, they
that
Proton
could
Mail.
combine our costs. So we should take a look
Yeah,
at it.
yeah. We
But yeah,
should. Zoom's got the advantage that like everybody knows it.
people are familiar, and that
Everybody
Yeah,
knows it. Everybody knows Zoom, and it works really good.
yeah, yeah. Most of the time.
they've been working on it for years now. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's starting to get good. Um,
finally,
so expect some changes in the coming months. I think our deadline is like July, sometime in July. So if we're going to make a move, that'd be a good time to do it. Otherwise, we have 6 months after that, right? So there. One more business thing, user groups. Gib, you want to tell us about MD Lug? What you guys are doing?
Yes, sir. So we've been doing really informal discussions, no real topic up front. We did have a pretty lively discussion about AI this past month. That seems to be a buzz thing going around. Everybody's talking about that.
Yeah.
And so anything you're interested in, come and drop in, talk a little bit. We go all over the place. We talk, a lot about computers. We'll talk about maybe politics as it relates to computers and economy, and jump into science fiction and all kinds of stuff. So, yes, maybe like 5 or 6 people. So noon on second Saturday. Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, so it was last Saturday?
Yeah. Sometimes we're ahead, sometimes we're behind you guys.
Yeah, yeah, depending on where it falls. And, this being the 14th, it's the last possible Tuesday that we could do it. Richard, Semco?
Yes, we are, always meet the second Sunday of each month. The topic for May has not been determined yet. And yes, believe it or not, we are meeting on Mother's Day that day.
Yeah.
And, but, when the topic, is decided upon, we will, put it in our, on the website, scmco.org. Another
great.
thing that I am going to mention, and that is that Semco has been around for 50 years.
Holy moly.
We started in 1976. That's when Intel invented the computer chip, and Altair 8800, the first personal computer, came out about that time. And
Wow.
I was one of the students at Wayne State University, Jim Moraris, and a couple of other people, and we started Semco. And our annual meeting will be coming up. I'll have to check the exact month because I wrote it down and I didn't do what I was supposed to do and remember it.
Yeah, in 1985, I went to my first Semco meeting. That's when it was held at Lawrence Tech.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I just remember on a Sunday afternoon, all these geeks. I thought, yeah, these are my people.
Yes. And but I was at PenguinCon, and they had some good presentations there. Not as much tech as they should,
Right.
but I talked to Jeff Maracini. They're going to have a lot of tech next year.
I hope so.
He explained why they didn't have quite as much as they would have wanted this year, but I'm not going to get into all
that
the
event
details.
came and went before I even realized it. Like we were talking at lunch last week, and somebody mentioned it. It's like that happened already. So
at any rate, it's a excellent excellent thing. And one of the presentations at PenguinCon was someone who spoke about the history of computing and the electronics involved, including personal computing, and he had equipment there that he brought in a big cart, and we could see some of the ancient personal computers. And I'm hoping to get him to be the person to present at our annual meeting,
that'd be
at
excellent.
our anniversary meeting.
All right, let's see, move on. Is there any other business we needed to discuss? I think Joe, did you want to talk about your Lansing group?
Lansing.codes, the Mid-Michigan Tech Clearinghouse. If you're up in this neighborhood or close by, Lansing.codes, we have a Slack that's pretty active. And then don't forget Justin and the Python user group, empug.org.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat. We meet on second Tuesday, so already finished April. We actually went to a brewery this month and just chatted, but next month we'll probably be at the Hackerspace again, so everyone's
cool.
welcome to join us.
And you said second Tuesday?
Yeah, second Saturday.
Okay. I'm thinking, how are you here?
Hard to make the second Tuesday.
Years and years and years ago, I think we used to meet on Wednesdays. I don't know if any of you guys remember that, but something happened and we decided, we looked at the calendar and we figured out holidays. When is our best time to not bump into holidays? And I think it used to be like the first Wednesday, and now it's the second Tuesday. We chose second Tuesday because that was our least intersection with any holidays, and so the only holiday we ever really bump into is Valentine's Day, and that's like, how often is Tuesday on the 14th of February, and it's like once every 6 years or something. So we live with that, but we avoid all other holidays. We don't have to worry about all the other holidays that would appear like in the first week, the first couple of days of the month. So anyway, yeah, I think that was probably early '90s that decision was made. I don't remember if I was on the board yet or not, but anyway, I think we've covered the important things. I think we can get on to the.
Well, let me just jump in
yeah.
first.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you and the board for all that you do. I know another year has passed and we just sort of let that fly by. But you take the time to figure out what to do. You talk to people to try to arrange a speaker. It's a bit of work. I know you guys meet in a room and have a nice big steak and all that stuff. It's a little bit of a party, but there is work involved and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gib. I appreciate that. And this time I'll speak for the board. The board appreciates that. And you know what it's like being on the board. You were on the board for a while.
Yeah, there was a year there, and then I got kind of busy, and I'm retired now. I'm thinking about it, but I'm doing the snowbird thing, so I'd only be there for part of the year. So I don't think it'd be a good fit,
Yeah. Thank you. I think we can move on to the main presentation. By far not the most important part of this evening, but it is the main presentation. And by the way, we're not doing a secondary presentation like we usually do, just because we're running out of time. I generally like to be done by 8, but I don't think we're gonna this time because I've got a few things to talk about. So tonight, I'm talking about containers, in particular Docker, but I'll cover the rest as well. A while ago, let's see, March 7th, Wolf and I do a podcast, Runtime Arguments, and we did an episode on containers, and it was a lot of fun to do because there's a lot of cool information, and the episode was received really, really well. It got a lot of downloads. So we thought, well, the problem with the podcast, it's audio only, and we can't show things. We can't, we can't take questions, live questions. So we thought this would make a great topic for a mug meeting because it's much more interactive. So that's how we ended up here tonight. I'm going to, let's see, how am I going to do this? I'm going to share my screen, but I'm going to share my entire screen because I want to show some slides and I also want to show some shell stuff. So let me see how I do that here. I want to share that desktop. And I'm going to have to make things bigger and stuff. I understand that. That's probably too small for you all to see, right?
It's a little small.
I can see it.
Hang on.
That's fine.
All right. My slides, they don't get very dense with material. So you should be able to see that pretty well. And I'm not even going to go into slide presentation mode. I'm just going to leave it in the slide designer mode so I can easily switch back and forth. Because if I go presentation mode, then it takes up a whole screen and it's just nothing but annoying. So anyway, we're talking about containers. In particular, I'm going to spend most of my time talking about Docker because that's what I use. That's what I'm most familiar with. And it's probably the most popular way to run containers. But here, this slide sort of says everything you need to know, I think. I'll give you a chance to read that graphic. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. I can make it bigger. So container lets developers package the applications along with the dependencies into an image. And we're going to go through some of that today. Why would you want to do that? Well, you got consistency, so you don't have worries about production environment being different than the development environment. We've all run into that, right? It works fine on my computer, Why doesn't it work on yours? Well, containers let you package all that stuff up that you need for that application, and will be there when you run in a production environment or a staging environment, whatever. It's very portable. You can run the same image on tiny little machines or great big monster machines. It's the same container, the same image, and scalable. You can easily fire off many containers. If you have something that needs to scale, right? If you're, let's say you're CNN on election night, and your environment needs to scale really big, because everybody's checking on the website, and a single Apache server is just not going to handle it. So you can run, you can set up a scalable environment using something like Kubernetes, and it will detect the load and just start spinning up new instances. You used to do that with virtual machines, but now containers are so much more lightweight and they spin up so much faster. It's a really nice way to do that. And if you have questions, stop me, because I'll just ramble if you don't. They sound like a virtual machine, right? Let me show you the difference though between containers and virtual machines. I've got the two columns here for the difference. A virtual machine emulates the hardware, right? You end up with a virtual hard disk and virtual networking stack, and virtual. Really, your CPUs are even virtualized. Your RAM, everything is virtualized for you. So it's fairly heavyweight when you do a virtual machine. There's a lot of resources there that need to be created for you to run that one virtual machine. Whereas with a container, you share all the resources. You share the kernel, you share the memory and the disk and everything. Even devices you can share. So it's much smaller and more lightweight. The size of virtual machines are, can you create a virtual machine that's less than a gig? I mean, yes, you can, but it's, by the time you get an operating system installed in a virtual machine, you're talking a few gigabytes at least. Containers can be just a few megabytes, depending on what you're putting in it. And then the boot time, I sort of mentioned that earlier. A virtual machine can take minutes to boot up and get everything up and running, where a container can spin up in seconds or even milliseconds. So that's huge. And the resource usage, again, it's dedicated to a virtual machine, your RAM, CPU, and disk, whereas with a container, it's all shared. So it's very low resource usage. And, virtual machines, when I was running VMware in a data center, I think at one time I had about 30 VMs running on my server, and it handled it really well, but I wouldn't go much bigger than that unless you go like with Monster RAM and Fast RAM. 30 is pretty good. You could probably do 50 pretty easily, but with containers you can run thousands of them, all on the same host, because containers, it's not like running an operating system. The container is just running your binary, the binary application along with its libraries. That's all that's running. It's not like some big monster thing has to start up and handle it. So you can run thousands of containers on the same host. Now I'm running a virtual machine, and the thing is, you can run containers in a virtual machine. So I've moved all of my data stuff to Azure, where I'm running Ubuntu Linux VM, and on that I'm running Docker containers. And I think I've got about 18 containers running, 18 or 19 containers running, and it's no problem at all. It's just very simple. But I could run hundreds or thousands if I wanted, without even. I mean, it's a small VM. It's got 4 gigs of RAM. If I wanted to run thousands of containers, I would up my RAM a bit and probably go with more CPUs. But you can do an awful lot.
So
Is there a
Jim,
question?
Yeah, one note I want to throw in is if you have groups in your organization that you have to work with, like IT asset management people, or put this specific scanner tool on your Linux box people. For some reason, they haven't quite caught up to the container world, so you can kind of disappear machines off their radar if you switch to containers.
Yeah, yeah, it's evolving. People are getting more and more used to it. It's becoming really common in the cloud, because it's a great way. When you do the cloud, if you just, like I said, I had 29 or 30 VMs running in my data center. When I moved to the cloud, that would have been like 29 virtual machines that I would have to pay for in a cloud hosting provider. VMs are not cheap. I mean, they're not terribly expensive, but they're not zero. So every single VM would cost. And when I switched to Docker, I can run one single virtual machine and run all of my containers on it. And so, for instance, I've got multiple customers running. And what I used to do is spin up a VM for each customer. Now I just have one VM and I spin up another Docker container for that customer. And their applications are all web-based, web server and some services that go along with it. So I'm not that worried about isolation, although containers do have pretty good isolation. Not as isolated as a virtual machine, but I think we're going to see more and more and more containers as the years go by, because it's just a really great way to deploy your applications and know that you have everything you need. The big thing before containers was orchestration software. Puppet and Chef, and there's a handful of others that were used to make sure that your machines were all configured identically. Now I just have one machine that I have to configure, and all my containers, I build the container, I build the image, and I run it. And I'll show you in a couple of minutes how you build those containers. One of the things, I didn't create a slide on this, but I wanted to point out some of the technology in Linux that allows containers to happen. I'm looking back in my notes. There's a few things that make it all work, and it's interesting. I worked on LTSP back. We started in 1999, and at that time I would go to the Ottawa Linux Symposium, and that's where they'd have the kernel summit. And I remember one time I had a question. I had a problem I needed to solve to make LTSP work, and that's thin clients on Linux. And I bumped into Alan Cox, and at that time he was like the right-hand man for the kernel development. He was the guy that handled creating the distribution of the Linux kernel. And I talked to him, and he said he was focusing on namespaces, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell that is. He talked all about it though, and I thought, well, that's neat, and I didn't think much of it until I got into containers. And the thing that makes containers work is something called control groups. I think somebody's microphone is on. I'm sort of picking up some sound here. Let me see if I can. I'm sorry. I just have to turn off some microphones. I'm picking up some stray noise. So control groups, they're a feature in the Linux kernel. These things all came since like 1999. They organize processes into groups so you can manage the group of processes. You can limit and monitor their consumption of resources. Meaning CPU, memory, and disk. You can put limits on the amount of those resources that a control group is going to use. Namespaces. That's what Alan Cox was telling me about. That partitions your global system resources, providing each group of processes with its own isolated view of those resources. That lets you do things like mount file systems and your list of process IDs, and your networking and your inter-process communication, and your host name. And I never really thought about this before, but a host name on a computer is an important thing to the computer. And in your containers, you're going to want to set a host name. So namespaces let you do that. And also containers can have their own idea of what time it is. And that's all controlled by namespaces. It keeps them isolated from one to the next. And then the third thing is bind mounts. And that's the ability to mount things over other things. We're all used to mounting a file system. You plug a USB disk in, and it just automatically gets mounted under like /MNT/something. Or you add a new hard drive to your system and you format it, and you put a file system on it, and then you set up your file sys table to tell it where to mount. It's common for me to mount hard disks under /SRV for services. Bind mounts let you basically mount files and directories in place of other directories, and that's a really important thing for containers. And we'll get into that in a minute. Let's start really easy. If you just want to run a container, well, first of all, you have to install Docker, and it's really simple. You can just apt if you're on an Ubuntu system or a Debian-based system, it's just apt install Docker. I like to go get the official Docker packages from the Docker website, and if you just Google install Docker, it'll recommend you do that. Because what I find with Ubuntu is the versions of things that they put in their long-term supported releases are generally pretty old. If you install Docker from the Ubuntu repository, it's going to be a fairly old version. Just like if you install Postgres, Postgres is up at version 18 right now. You're probably going to get version 15 if you install from the repo. So anyway, back to Docker. So you install it, and then you can just run this command: Docker run, and then -IT is I is for interactive, T is to allocate a sudo TTY, and then I'm running the Ubuntu image, and I'm telling it to run bash. So let's do that. I'm going to make it bigger. I'm just going to Docker run -IT Ubuntu /bin/bash. Boom. I'm running inside a container now. You can tell from my prompt, and you can play with prompts and stuff to make it more obvious. But right now, I'm running the shell inside the container. If I list things, there's the root directory of the container. Interesting. If I run PS, I've only got two processes running, right? Bash is my process ID 1, and then PS was my second process. If I run it again, now, it started a new instance of PS, so it's 11. So you can see that I've got a PID 1, and if you know much about Linux and Unix and how they initialize, the kernel treats PID 1 specially. That's the process that sort of controls all the other processes. So here we are in this container, and my PID 1 is bash. If you look on your Linux box right now, and you looked at if you did like a PS minus P1 minus LF, I see bash, but you'd probably see system control, or if it's an older version, you might see if it's really old, you'll see init. That's the process that sort of runs everything else. So you see, because of process groups and namespaces, I've got my own PID 1. Even though if I get out of it and I look at my processes, I got a whole bunch of processes. And if I look at PS minus P1, it's sbin init, which I think is just a symlink to syscontrol, or sysinit. So anyway, that was my container. I ran that container by basically just typing that command, right? And what it did is it looked on my local system to see if I had an image called Ubuntu. And in this case, I did because I ran it earlier today. But if I hadn't, it would have gone out to Docker Hub and fetched that Ubuntu image and downloaded it. I'll bet I could run Fedora. I haven't tried this. I'm not a Fedora Red Hat guy. But you see that? It's pulling the Fedora image. And there, now I'm running Fedora. That's my little image. There's not very much here. PS. Oh, I don't even have the PS command. That's a very minimal version. I would have to. I don't know what the package tools are for installing. I would have to install PS. But let's go back to the Ubuntu one. Okay, here I am. I'm running Ubuntu. I could install packages if I want. Let's update our package list. Notice, like, there's no Vim, right? apt-get install Vim. Yes, it'll take a few seconds to install. Oh, golly, it wants to know time zone data because I don't have a time zone set. Please select a city, I think. 50. Oh, come on, 50. Okay, guess what? Now I have Vim, right? Because I just installed it. So you can install packages like that in this running container. It's important to know, though, that containers are ephemeral. They stay as long as that container has been allocated. Now I can exit from it, and that container still exists. I haven't deleted the container, so the container still exists. It's not running. See, if I do Docker PS, you don't see it running. But if I do Docker container ls, and it's not running, so it's not showing up. But if I do -a, you can see it shows up. Both of those containers, or in fact, I ran the Ubuntu one a couple of times, but all three of those containers are still there because I ran the Docker run command three times. Interesting, when you run a command like that, a real simple Docker run, it assigns a name to that container. And what it uses is I think an adjective and a scientist name. So like Lucid Ellison is the name it gave it. It's just a random name. Magical Sutherland, Blissful Goss. Every time I do a Docker run, it creates a new name randomly based on that adjective and name. So those are still there. Now I can they're not running, but I can run them. Docker run. Let's see. No, Docker start. I can give it the name. Let's run the most recent one.
Jim, is that name like Blissful Gauss? Is that a shorthand that just like the first column, which is container ID? Is it a unique shorthand?
It's a human readable name. I could just as easily use that.
Okay.
The container ID. Okay. I'd much rather type in a couple of words.
Yep.
Right.
And you can choose the name instead of letting auto generate.
Yeah. When you do the run, you can do, I think, a -n and give it a name if you want. And we'll show how some name stuff works in a little bit. So here, I'm going to run it, and I want to detach. Okay. I want it to run in the background. Docker. Oh, I did this earlier. Container. Oh, I can't end it with -d. I have to do this. Or do I? Oh, come on. I did this earlier today and it worked just fine. I don't normally do this, so I'm a little bit clumsy with this command. And basically, there is a way. History.
Is the default to detach it, Jim?
No, the default is not to detach it, but let's do. Oh, yeah. Thanks. The exec command and the run command, you want to do the -D. But when you're just starting a container, now it's running. It's been running for 8 seconds, and there it is. Now, how can I attach to it? Docker exec -IT. Remember, interactive allocated to, sudo tty. Give it the name, and tab completion works, fortunately. And then tell it what command I want to run. Oh, gotta spell it right. Bash. Okay, I'm in. I'm back into my container. If I do this, now I've got 3 processes running. I've got the one, and then I've got a shell running because I did that start command that started up another shell, and then my PS command. And remember I installed Vim? It's still there. Okay. But let's exit. I just hit Control D. I could have typed exit. I probably could have typed quit as well. It's still running now. It's running in the background. I can kill it. I can do Docker stop blissful Gauss, and it takes a couple of seconds to stop because I'm not using a real init system, an init program as my PID1. It actually has to wait 10 seconds before it kills it. But anyway, now it's dead, right? So that's like the simplest container you could do. Just Docker run and give it the name of the image you want. And there's a ton of images out there you can get. Like, you want to run Postgres? You can say Docker run Postgres, and it'll go fetch Postgres from Docker Hub. Now, you got to run all those commands, like to initialize the database and all those kinds of things. But let's just go to the next slide here. Let's build a container, okay? Let me shrink this down just a little bit. I'm going to show you. Let's see. I'm going to move that Docker. Well, yeah, I'm going to move that Docker file. No. And I'm going to create a Docker file. This will be the simplest Docker file you ever see from Ubuntu. That's it. That's my Docker file. Now I can build my image. Docker build X build. Build X is really the tool that's doing it, and then I'm giving it the build command. I got to give it a tag. That's like to give it a name. I'm going to call it my container.
Jim, I think you misspelled Ubuntu in the file.
Did I?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, if I did, we're going to find out.
Okay.
Yep. Ubuntu, yeah. So let's go fix that. Thanks, Jim.
I was hoping to watch him stumble around and try to figure out what happened.
Yeah,
it comes up pretty quick. Yeah. I would have had to read the error message, which sometimes is challenging. So here, I'm going to build my new container. I'm going to call it my container. And I have to say dot, because it's the current directory where I'm building it. That's where the Docker file exists. The name Docker file is important. So I do that, and there. It basically, it loaded the build. Let's see, wait. It loaded the Docker file. I have cached the Ubuntu image because I've loaded it already, so it's already in my local cache. Then it exports it to an image, and really an image just a bunch of layers. See how it's saying exporting layers? Then there's a manifest. In fact, I think in this case it's probably only 2 layers. There's the Ubuntu image that's in my cache that got pulled in, and then there's my new layer that I created. And it sets up a whole bunch of manifest stuff. And now I have an image that I can run. So Docker image ls. I've got a lot of images, some of my various stuff here. But basically, there's my image that I just created, my container :latest. It's, almost 30 megabytes in size. I always use Ubuntu because I'm so familiar with it, but a real common thing to use instead of Ubuntu, if you want to really, really strip down Linux, Alpine. Look at the size of that. That's almost 4 megs. That's quite a bit smaller than Ubuntu. It's very stripped down. Instead of all the system utilities, all the shell utilities and stuff, it uses BusyBox, which is just this tiny little binary that does all those things. Anyway, there's my image. I can run it. Docker run -it my container. If I had multiple versions of my container, I could tag them that way. It could be my container Tuesday. And then I would see it in my list. I could run whatever the tag is. I could run my container tag name and pick the exact one that I want. Let's tell it we want to run bin bash. And there we are. We're in my container. Notice this one doesn't have Vim because I haven't installed it. That's basically these commands. That was my build command that I did, and that's how I run it. Questions?
Do you share, for example, the base of Ubuntu between individual running Docker instances?
Yeah, the layers are shared if it's the same layer, and I'll show that in a little bit as well. Okay. So let's do something a little bit bigger. Let's containerize a web server. And in this case, I'm doing Apache because that's like the old granddad of web servers. I'm gonna move this Docker file Apache to Docker file, stomping on top of the other one, and I'll show you what that's doing. Right from Ubuntu, I'm going to run apt update to update my package list, and then I'm going to run apt install with a -y to automatically say yes. And I'm going to install Apache 2, and then this is the command you do to start it: Apache Control-D -D foreground -K start. That will start Apache running. Okay. So that's my Docker file. Now I have to build an image. So let's do the same thing. Docker build. In fact, I can just up arrow it and run the same command. So I'm going to call it the same thing. I keep stepping over the top of my container. Okay. So I'm going to call it Docker build x build -- tag my container. Okay. That's it. I already had the Apache. Well, it actually had to go fetch the Apache, but it did it very quickly. But I already had the Ubuntu image in my cache. It doesn't really even show it, but basically it ran this command, and then it created it exported it to an image, creating layers and manifests and all that stuff. So now I've got Docker image ls. So now my container is a bit bigger, right? It was 29.7 megs. Now it's 110 megs. It's because I installed Apache. And when you install Apache, it pulls in a lot of other stuff too. Apparently, 80 megs worth of stuff. So now I've got this new container. So let's run it. And I'm going to introduce something new here. I'll pause before I start going. You see this here? That's telling it to map port 8080 on my local machine, on my host, to port 80 in the container. So any request to 8080 on my host machine is going to be redirected into the Apache that's running on the container. So let's run that. What did I do? What did I do?
Didn't you say the -D is not required? Is it?
It is to run. If you don't, it'll. Let's see. What am I doing wrong here? Well, let's try without it. Okay. Now, see, the problem is it didn't detach. I think I have to put the -D in front of the command. So let's kill it. Let's try this again. Let's put -D here. Oh, it is running, right? And it's listening at 8080. So I'm going to kill that one. Docker stop. What's that thing? Flamboyant. Takes 10 seconds. If I had a reel in it in my image, it wouldn't take that long. Okay, so let's try running it again. Okay, it's running. Now if I do a Docker PS, I'm going to make my screen a bit bigger. Is this font size big enough for you guys to see?
Can you make it a little bigger?
I sure can.
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I can go a lot bigger. The stuff I'm doing isn't all that densely packed, so I can go pretty big. So here, it's been up for 27 seconds. Here's the important information. It's mapping port 8080 on both the IPv4 network stack and the IPv6 network stack. It's mapping it into port 80 inside the container, and it gave it a name, Vigorous Edison. So that's running. So let me bring up a web browser, and let's see. That machine is Docker Builder 8080. Look at that. We have us an Apache. That's the default page you get, right? When you start running Apache, that's it. So that's running. And while that's running, I can exec into it, like get a shell. IT vigorous /bin/bash. Look at that. I have a few more processes now. Now Apache is my PID1, because remember I had entry point in I had this guy. Yeah. Basically, it's saying the command to run when it boots up or starts up is Apache control. So that's what you see, Apache control. And then it spawns instances of the web server itself, Apache 2. And then I've got my shell that I just logged in with, NPS. So those things are all running. So there. I mean, now we've got a web server. It's not terribly exciting, but it's kind of neat, I think. So what now? So I kind of showed you some of these things already, some of these commands. I'm going to shrink my screen this way a little bit. Docker container ls show. Oh, I'm still inside the container. So let's do that. Docker container ls shows me my running containers, and I could have lots of running containers. It's showing the only one I have. Shorthand of that is just Docker PS. Shows the same thing. I've already shown you how I can stop that container. I showed you how I can exec into it. Right? I can Docker exec IT the container name and then the command I want to run. And Docker image ls. Now, it's important to understand the distinction between images and containers, right? The image is the thing that I built. It's a bundle of layers, and it exists on disk. And I gave it a name of my container. A container, like Probably should have called it my image. A container is an instance of that image. So that's these are the container names. When I do a Docker image ls, it's showing me all the images that I have, and here's their names. If I do a Docker container ls, that's showing the running container. That's the name of the container as it's running. Now I could have multiples of those containers running. In fact, let's do that. Let's fire up another instance of that. So that's how I started my first instance. Let's start another one on port 8081 and another one on port 8082. Docker PS. I've got 3 containers right now, each of them listening on a different port on my host, all pointing to port 80 inside the container. It's 3 different containers. That's how that can work. See how they all got 3 different names. Now, if I go back to my web browser, that's port 8080. If I go to port 8081, look at that. I got a page. It looks surprisingly like the first one, doesn't it? Port 8082. That's 3 separate instances of the Apache web server running. Questions? No?
Can you show a summary of the memory used then by when you have 3 of these running?
Oh, there's some commands to do that. I never worry about it. You know, I mean, obviously you can run top, and see, you can, yeah, top's not a bad way to do it. There are some commands for examining your running instances. I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah, I was wondering, maybe it's like 95% shared commonality there, so you don't have you saved 95%.
Well, in this case, well, disk space. There's no additional disk space being taken up with my 3 instances because they're all the same. They're all the same thing. Docker container ls. There is additional memory used because Apache is running multiple times, right?
Jim, one thing I was thinking that you could show is you just shown how you can run that Apache server a couple other times, but you didn't show how to make an image called my custom Apache. So you would do just like a Docker commit, give it a name.
Oh, I can take a running, I can take a running container and turn that into an image that I can use later. I don't do that because I want my images to be reproducible. I build my images from the Docker file, and I can always reproduce that image. If I were to take a running instance, like earlier when I went into that image, the Ubuntu image where I installed Vim. After having installed Vim, I could save that as a new image.
Right.
And then I could run that as many times as I want, or run it later,
or upload it somewhere,
or push it somewhere. I like the idea of being able to reproduce that build easily. But sometimes you're just farting around and you're building something and it ends up pretty cool, and you want to save it. So you can save it by creating an image from it. What's the command that you use to do that?
So you do Docker commit and then container name space and then whatever you want to call
my new image. Yeah. And
you could also put a colon tag after the image name that you gave it if you want to do like
the normal way of naming images. Let's see. I don't have. Let's see. Docker container ls-a. One of these that's quit had VM in it. I could turn that into an image. I'm just not sure which one it is. It's one of these 4. But anyway, it's an interesting thing to be able to turn that running container into a new image that you can call up later. Yep. So let's talk for a minute about persistent storage. Now, I kind of showed you that I can build an Ubuntu container with Apache in it, and when we look at what it looks like, that's the content. I could, if I just had nothing but static content, I could create my Docker image, I could create my container. I could go into my Docker file, create my container, and I could issue the commands to fill up that var www HTML directory with my content. And then when I build my image, that's it. My image has Apache and it has my content, but that's not very flexible. It's likely not the way you're going to do it. Now, I do it in one instance. We've got the Avaris webpage. All that content is baked into the image, so I don't have to worry about any content sitting out anywhere. It's just in the image. So I can fire up the Avaris web image. It's my website because it's not dynamic content. It's just static stuff. But let's say you want to have your content in another directory that you can edit and save, or let's say you have a database. Like I run Postgres as a Docker container, but you're really not going to save you're not going to have your Postgres data, the actual data files, be in the running container. You want that to sit outside of the container, and mount that container, mount that data directory into your container when you start it up. So the way you do that is when you run the container, you can pass a dash. It's actually dash volume, but the shorthand is just -v. And if you look here, I've got a content directory. It's actually contents is not the directory. Sudo manager contents is not the one. Just get rid of that. So I've got a content directory. If you look at it, if we cat it, it's a very small HTML file. It's just that. Okay. So I can run a Docker instance with that. So let's do that. Let's pick another port. Oh, come on. There we go. Let's do it on 8083. And let's do -v/home/jam/mug/content:/var/ww. Is it too? That's too many W's. Okay. Now Apache is on an Ubuntu machine is looking for its content in the var www.html directory. I've put my content in this directory and I've mapped it to that. So when this container starts up, its www.html directory is going to be the contents of this directory. So let's run that. There, it's running. Docker PS. Now you can see I've got one running on there. So let's go look at my browser and let's change the port to be 8083. Look at that. Now that data, that directory is persistent. It's going to be there as long as I keep that directory there. I can shut down the container, I can delete the container, I can do whatever I want, but that content is still there. So I can fire up another container later on, pointing at that content, and that's it. It's out there. In my case, I'm running an Apache web server, and I've got a whole ton of CGI scripts and HTML stuff and a whole bunch of things. All of that is in a directory that I mount as a volume in my running Docker containers. So let's get on to maybe a better way to run it, though. You've seen this command that I typed with all these options, right? There's a better way. Instead, you can use Docker Compose. And Docker Compose, you create a file called docker-compose.yaml, and you put things in it. So let me bring that up. VI Docker. That's my Docker Compose file. My real Docker Compose files are much, much bigger than that. This is about as simple as you can get. It's doing basically the same thing. It's taking the my container image, it's mapping this port, it's mounting this volume in that location. I'm giving it a name because if I don't, I got to give it a host name and a domain name. If I don't, Apache whines at me, and I don't want it to whine. But let's change this. What was the last port we did? 8083? Yeah.
Yep.
Let's run it again at 8084. Okay. So I just changed my Docker compose file. And now if I run it, I can just say Docker compose up. And then, what's that?
Don't we need to change the image name to whatever Edison or whatever it is?
No, I'm still going to run the same image. Docker compose is just how it's going to run that image. Right? My image is still called my container. Right? That's the image. My container is going to assign some random name to it, and we'll see that in a second. But now, instead of doing this command to start it running, I can just say Docker compose up, and I'm going to attach the -D because otherwise it's going to stay in the foreground. So let's do that. There, it's running. If I do a Docker PS, I have another instance running. Only this time it actually gave it a name that's a little more meaningful. It knows we're in the mug directory. My service name was web, and it tacks a -1 on it. Presumably I could have multiples of those, or I could tell it to spin up multiples. And it would, for each one that it spins up, it would tack another number on it. So anyway, I've got that container running. And if I go over here and I go to port 8084, hello mug. I mean, it's the same content as the other one, right? As 8083. It's the same content. But if you're running things in production, or even for testing and development, it's really nice to use this Docker compose because it's a great way to specify all the things that you need in a readable way. And there's a lot more that can go in here. Like I do it, and I've got like my 18 or 19 containers configured. And then I also, one of my containers is Postgres. And I set that up, and you can set up a dependency tree so that you can say that all of these other containers depend on Postgres. There's no point in launching my application if the database isn't running. So when I do Docker compose up, it'll start all of those containers, but it'll do it in a certain order. It'll make sure that it figures out the dependency graph, and it starts the things that it needs to before it starts the things that need that service. So like I said, I run Postgres as a container. So it starts up Postgres, and then it starts up all the things that need Postgres. The other thing I do is I specify a network in my Docker compose file. So I create my own little virtual network it's basically a network between all of my containers. It's not a network, that's available to the outside world, but my containers can talk to each other across that network. So you can specify that in this file. And you see, I've got like volumes. I can mount as many volumes as I want. I can map as many ports as I want. And I can have as many services as I want. And when you do Docker compose up, it starts them all going. So let's go back to building just a little bit. I got a few more words to say about building. We mentioned earlier layers. This is kind of my layer, how I set up my layers for my system. I've got an Averis base that basically has Ubuntu and networking tools and the Postgres client, because all my other services are going to need those things. If I'm debugging things, I want my networking tools. I want to do netstat and IP and all those kinds of things. So I want those in there. So I built the base image with that. And then when I built my AV service image, I said from Averis base. So it inherits everything that Averis base has. In fact, it doesn't even copy it in or anything. It just uses that layer that I created earlier, or that set of layers that I created earlier. And it adds Node.js. And then I've got another image that I create called Averis EHR. That is my electronic health record system. It's my Averis code, my Perl modules, several utilities that I need. And then from that, I have another set of images that depend on that one. So all of these say from Avera EHR, and Avera EHR was from Avera Space. So I can create these images this way. And then I can run one of them, and it has everything that it needs to run. Important thing about layers, though. Let's go back to that build command where we were. I think this one. Okay. No. This one. Okay. The Docker file. It might be easier if I show it here. This file. Every time I say run, it creates a new layer. So I could have written this like this instead, right? I could have written it like, and not had that line. It would have worked exactly the same, but there would have been two layers now. I would have had the things that made up this, and then the next layer would have been the things that make up this. So I'd have those two layers. That gets really important. Like, this is no big deal. There's not a lot of overhead to do that. But let's say one of your run things is like apt install build essentials, which is like the C compiler and make, all those things you need to compile. And I never remember if it's build hyphen or build underscore. But anyway, that's a package. And let's say I did run curl HTTPS some package, and then I had to run /configure, or yeah, it actually would have been a tar xvf of whatever that package was, and then it would have been run /configure, probably -y to just say yes to everything, and then run make, and then run make test, and then run make install. And then, so now it's all installed and everything, right? And then you might think, well, okay, let's do this. Let's run apt purge. Actually, apt remove build essentials. And maybe run apt purge to get rid of some stuff. The problem is you created all these layers here, and those your compilers and all that stuff are in this layer, and they get carried forward to this layer and carried forward to this layer. So way down here in this layer, you remove it, doesn't matter. It's still part of the overall image. So your images get really, really bloated. Like, I had an image that was like 3 gigs because of all the stuff I installed. So instead, what I like to do is, once I've debugged everything and I've got things working the way I want, then I'm going to show you, where is it? I'm going to show you this in just a second. Here we go. And let me increase my font by a lot. See what I do? Like, I want to install the MS Core fonts because I need it for ImageMagick. So I'll do this run. It's a here document. I do a run less than EOF, and then it runs all of these commands, and that's one layer. But more importantly, this guy here, I do this run EOF, and here I apt-get update. I upgrade to make sure I got the latest Ubuntu stuff. I run apt install on all these things that I need for my system. And then once I've installed everything, then I can purge and auto remove and remove the lists and EOF. So now my image doesn't contain lots of package related things I don't need anymore. I do the same thing here when I want to install Perl. All the Perl CPAN packages, I do all that. Let me show you another one. I think I've got my Postgres one here. PG. Here I do the same kind of thing. I have to install, I do an upgrade. I install all these tools that I need to build Postgres. Then I fetch Postgres with curl. I install Postgres. Actually, what I used to do is actually build Postgres. That reminds me, I can probably take a lot of that stuff. Well, I do need all those libraries and stuff. But then I do the auto remove. But things where I actually build things, I really want to get rid of. Like there's no point, if I suck down the source code to build Postgres, there's no point in me keeping that source code in the image. I want to clean that stuff up. Yeah.
Why are you using stages?
I'm sorry?
Stages.
What about it?
Where first you build the big image that has all the tools.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I don't want all the tools sticking around in my images, though, because those tools in the images are just using up space.
But Docker actually has a mechanism for this where you say, yeah, my new thing is based on the total result of this, but without any layers.
I got to look at that.
From is in my mind, but that might not be right.
Well, yeah, I am using from, right?
Yeah, it's not from. It's something, but it's like Docker specifically does it.
Okay, I'll take a look at it. Anyway, where were we? We did that. Yeah, see, there's my images. Each one does a from of the previous one. So let's move on to the next really interesting thing. My desktop computer is a Mac, an ARM chip. It's Apple Silicon, right? Mine's getting old these days. It's an M1. That's my desktop machine. I also have here a small Linux box, a small box. It's an x86 running Linux. In production, I deploy Linux on x86 all the time. I'm getting into a project now where I'm doing some Raspberry Pi stuff. Docker has this wonderful feature that lets you build multi-architecture images. And you have to install a package to do it. You can Google how to do that. But I could build x86 and ARM at the same time. In fact, I could build for the S390. I think I could build for the, I don't know if Spark is still supported, but there's like 11 different architectures that I can build my image for. And all I have to do on my Docker build line, all I have to say is -- platform, and then list the architectures that I'm interested in. So for me, it's Linux /AMD 64 and Linux /ARM 64. If I do that, it will, and let's say I'm on an x86 machine, it will build both of those images. And it does some amazing work with, what's that virtualization, what's that emulation environment? Somebody help me out here. That basically lets you emulate another. I'm sorry?
VirtualBox?
No, VirtualBox is a virtualization thing. This actually is an emulation thing.
Oh, LXC maybe? LXC?
No, LXC is
LXD?
It's a container. No, those are
the
container solutions.
QEMU one?
QEMU, that's it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, you get to be old like me and you start forgetting these things. QEMU, it uses QEMU to build those architectures that aren't native to the machine I'm building on. So when I run this command, it's really cool because it fires off in parallel both my AMD 64 build and my ARM 64 build. And if I'm on an x86 machine, it builds the AMD 64 build very quickly. It takes forever to build the ARM 64 image because it's in an emulated environment, but it does do it. And then the image that it creates, remember, an image isn't just a single file. An image is a collection of layers. And then there's some additional manifest files and stuff that detail what those layers are. So that image bundle contains layers for both x86 and ARM64 or AMD64 and ARM64. They're all there. And if I try to run that image on an x86 box, it loads the layers that it needs for that architecture. And if I move that image over to an ARM box, a Raspberry Pi, or an Apple Silicon machine, it will run there. And what really floored me is the fact that it runs just fine on Apple and the Raspberry Pi, because it's using the ARM64 image, and it's really cool. So I started doing that, and now I'm running my entire development environment and my entire system. I'm running on my Apple, and it just works. I had a few things that I was building that I was actually compiling from source, and I had to deal with that by making sure that they get compiled correctly in my Docker file. I specify how to build it. But anyway, when I learned that like 3 months ago, I was floored by how cool that was. And if I can do the same build on my Apple, on my Mac, and it will build the ARM64 very quickly. In fact, really quickly, because those M1, the M series chips are screaming fast. And it will build the AMD 64 image somewhat slower. So that was really cool and exciting when I figured that out. I thought I was going to have to plan for it. I use a Makefile to do all my builds, and I thought I was going to have to plan specially in my Makefile to do the different architectures. And it turns out, no, I don't have to do that. So let's talk briefly about a container registry.
And before you do,
yeah,
I pasted the stage mechanism into the chat.
Great. I can't see the chat while I'm talking.
All right, you'll see it.
Yeah, I'll see it when we're done here. So container registries. Thanks for doing that, Wolf. Container registries. So I build these images on my Ubuntu box. How do I get them out so I can use them in other places? Like I don't want to copy. I don't want to have to SCP that image over to another machine. There's this thing called a registry. You can push your images up to a registry, and then on whatever other machine you can pull from that registry. And it works quite nice. Now there's some commercial registries out there. GitHub for one. That's one that I use. GHCR. It's a GitHub container repository or container registry. GHCR.io. If you have a GitHub account, you have access to that. It actually, if you go to your GitHub account and you look under packages, the packages tab on the top, that's where this stuff goes. GitLab, a few years ago, Wolf helped me set up GitLab to be a container registry. I've since moved off of, when I moved out of the data center, I moved away from GitLab. But I used that for my container registry for a while. You can also host your own registry. In fact, there's a Docker image to let you do it. It's called registry. So if you just do Docker run registry, it'll fire up the registry and start running. And then you can push your images to it. So you just do this kind of a command. In fact, that's the basic syntax. But here's how I push to my own registry. Docker image push, and then I name my registry. It's cr.wdc.averaris.com. And then I tell it basically what I want to call it. And that's how I push my EHR image. And that pushes it up to that registry. So then I go to another machine, like my desktop, and I can either do a Docker pull and go fetch it, or I can just say Docker run, and I name this thing here. I give it that name, and it will pull that image from my registry and start running it. It's really cool. So for all my local development, when I'm building images and testing them and stuff, I push them all to my local container registry. But when I want to run it in production, I push up to my GitHub registry, container registry, and then over on Azure, when I do the pull, my Docker compose.yaml file specifies the ghcr.io registry and my images in the names that I'm going to pull. So that's container registries. Very, very useful. Much better than exporting.
There are also a number of other commercial registry projects you can use.
There are.
There are a multitude of them. There's
a whole bunch of them.
There's a bunch.
A really, really big one, probably the biggest one, is Docker Hub. In fact, when I do like Docker run Ubuntu, it's pulling that image from Docker Hub. That's the default registry. And you can create images and push them there. If you want to share your image with the world, you can push your container, your Docker images up to Docker Hub for other people to pull.
How do you know? How do you know when you're pulling down an image if you can trust it?
Well, that's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. I've probably been a little more trusting than I should, but I when you go to the Docker Hub website and you browse through their images, the Ubuntu one is the official image from Canonical. So I'm trusting that. I'm sure there are fingerprints and stuff you can analyze to make sure that it's the image you're expecting. But let's move on. Let's talk about running containers on other Linux on other operating systems besides Linux. This box on the left, this is basically how your containers run. You got a single Linux kernel, and all of your apps that you're running on your machine and your containers are using that same kernel. They're sharing all the same resources. They're contending for the same RAM, the same disk space, everything, because they are all using that one kernel. However, if you want to run a container on a Mac or Windows, you have to install something like Docker Desktop. There are others that you can use, but it's a bigger job to set it all up on Windows or Mac, because you can't have a Linux container use a Mac kernel. That's not how it works, right? You have to have a Linux kernel in there. So what Docker Desktop does on both Windows and Mac is it fires up a small virtual machine with just a kernel. It's a very, very, it's just the kernel. There's nothing else there. It runs the kernel, and it's basically there for these containers to take advantage of. So all of my containers are going to hit that one Linux kernel. And then, of course, it's a virtual machine, so it's all the resources are virtualized. So it finally gets back to the Mac and it runs. And exact same thing happens on Windows. It works exactly the same way. You can run all your local apps and stuff that you have on your operating system, and then when you run a container, it's running inside a virtual machine, and it's just one virtual machine. So you could run a dozen containers, and they're all sharing the same Linux kernel virtual machine. It's a good time to point out a lesson that I learned in this model, where it's, do you guys see it when I move my mouse? I don't know if that shows up or not. I'm pointing at things with my mouse. Okay. Mm-hmm. In this model, they're all sharing the same kernel. So all the resources are the same. All the file systems are the same. When I do a bind mount or map a volume into a running container, it's the same kernel. So it is actually, it's not a copy of that file system. It's not a synchronized thing of that file system. It is that file system that I'm sharing between the host and the containers. So you write something to a file on the host, and if you've mapped it into the container, it's there. There's no wait time. There's no delay. It's just there. Doesn't work that way under Windows and Mac, because there isn't this concept of bind mounts. Technically, Windows has bind mounts, but it's it's not sufficient to do this. You're not sharing the file system between the host and the containers. You actually are getting a copy of that file system that gets synchronized. And there's other tricks you can play, like you can use NFS instead. So then you're really sharing it, but that gets kind of sticky. But you're basically synchronizing a file, a set of files, like a volume. You're synchronizing it between your host and your containers. That bit me because I'm doing all my development on my desktop now. I've got my source tree shared as a bind mount. Docker still lets you do the -v. I've got it shared that way. And I started noticing that I would edit a file and it wasn't immediately available in my container. And that's a real pain in the butt when you're trying to edit source code and then you want to test it. You make a change to your source code and it's not there in your container when you got to run it. It's a real problem. So I did a whole bunch of research and I found that you have to basically, Docker Desktop is free. There's a free version of it and that works fine. But if you needed to do this kind of thing where you're trying to share a file system, you need the paid version of Docker Desktop. And that annoyed me, but Docker Desktop is so valuable to me, what it does, I don't mind paying for it. And that includes some kind of a virtual synchronization layer that actually works. It actually does what it's supposed to do. It's still synchronizing. It's not two things sharing the same set of files. It has to synchronize, but it works so well I don't notice. I can edit my source and it's available immediately inside my my container. I haven't gone so far as to run a database on my desktop that way. I'm a little concerned about if I run a big database, if there's actually going to be two copies of the database because it has to synchronize them. I'm not sure how that works. But any questions at this point? You guys good? Okay. We're almost done here. This meeting's going much longer, but we had important stuff to do. Okay, so there are other containerization systems. I've been talking about Docker because that's what I use. That came out in 2013. There's Podman. Big difference between people like Podman because it doesn't require a daemon. Docker has a daemon running in the background, containerd. It's running in the background, and it's sort of keeping track of things and keeping the containers running and all that kind of stuff. Podman doesn't do that. Containers are lightweight. Podman is even lighter weight. And the cool thing is that, and along with these other container solutions, they all use the same format for their container images. So I can build an image with Docker and I can run it with Podman. I can build it with Docker and I can run it as an Apple container because Apple's got containers built in since 2025. And then I think Jim Peterson, you sort of mentioned LXD and LXC. Those are hybrid platforms. They can run containers and they can also run virtual machines. And really the same with Proxmox. It'll run a virtual machine and it'll run a container. In fact, it uses LXD as its lower level for running those containers. So yeah, and there's more than this. I mentioned a couple of the common ways to do this, but there are others. I think when Microsoft's got their container solution, but I think if you're wanting to get into containers, if you haven't done it yet, Docker is a great place to start because that's where you're going to find the most help. When you start Googling and asking Claude stuff, you're going to find the most help on Docker. Once you really get into it and start using it for a while, then start playing with the others. Start branching out and experiencing what they have to offer. And maybe you need what they have, maybe you don't. Let's see. And I mentioned that they're all the same format. There's something called OCI, the Open Container Initiative. That was created back in 2015 as a way to specify exactly the format of those images so that you have this portability. You can run the same image on different platforms, whether it's Podman or Docker or Apple containers or whatever. They promote the standardization of the runtime image and distribution formats. So, you know, your images are sitting in a registry somewhere, and then it doesn't matter if you're using Podman or whatever to fetch it and run it. So it's really kind of neat. Oh, and finally, questions?
One cool thing. So it's cool. Michael's here. I'm a BSD guy. I love jails.
Yeah.
Michael's got this great book called FreeBSD Jail Mastery. One thing he points out in his book that I thought was a great thing was, you know, what if you don't know, like you have a machine that's running an old application and you're like, well, that's all that this machine's doing. It's just running this really old application. But maybe something that he points out is sometimes that application can lose its mind, maybe take up all the CPU and overrun the system. So that might be a good, I mean, even if you've just got something simple like that, if you wrap it in a jail or you put it in a Docker container, you can basically kill the whole thing if it loses its mind without rebooting the machine, or without, you know, and you can resource limit it slightly so that maybe it has like access like 95% of all the resources, and it'll give you something to SSH back to the machine, you know.
So it doesn't consume 100%, so you're locked out. Yeah, you can limit it at really whatever. You can limit it disk and memory and CPU, so that it's not hogging all your CPUs. It's very useful like that. Another thing that I didn't mention early on the first time I used a container, I needed to run a command. I don't know if you guys are familiar with WK-HTML to PDF. It's a way to turn HTML into a PDF, and it's really a god awful thing, but I need it. It's really the only thing that'll work for what I need. But at some point, Ubuntu upgraded. I think when they went to 2204. There wasn't a WK-HTML to PDF package for 2204, and the 2004 package wouldn't work. So I packaged it back on a 2004 machine. I created a Docker image of WK-HTML to PDF, and it was the 2004, the version that ran on 2004. And then I ran that container on 2204, and it worked perfectly. You know, I could pass standard in and standard out. So here I am running an older version of a program on a newer operating system. Yep. And the same happens the other way. I don't have any really old production machines right now, but over the years I've had production machines that might be 6 or 8 years old, and I might have something new that I want to run. Node.js is something I run, and they're constantly upping the version, and they're with new features and stuff. So I needed to run a newer version of Node.js, and there was no hope of getting that installed on an Ubuntu 1804 machine. So I just did it with Docker. Docker runs on 1804. So I just ran a brand new version of Node on a really old version of Ubuntu, and it just works. You know, because the image contains all the libraries and stuff that it needs. Fortunately, there's enough binary compatibility of the kernels. You know, they're great about maintaining compatibility that way. So all the system calls that it needs to make are there. And it just worked. It's a great way to run newer versions of programs on older machines. And you know, you remember this this image. You know, it works on my machine. Then we'll ship your machine. That's what we're doing. We're building a machine and we're shipping it, and in a nice lightweight way. In the Docker file format is simple and you can easily reproduce those images. And I've grown to really love this.
I agree. I posted a couple of links in the chat. If you need a software bill of materials for your container, or if you need a vulnerability scan of your container, there's 2 good open source products, Sift and Gripe. I don't normally run containers in production, so I don't use them very often. But they will spit out a nice bill of materials. What do you have in your container? or
Nice.
what vulnerabilities are in your container. And of course, they have a
Yeah, that
commercial
second one
offering.
sounds really important for me.
Yeah, they have a commercial offering, but the source code is open source.
Cool. I'm looking through the chat. There's a lot of stuff in that chat that I hadn't been looking at.
Jim, do you save any resources if you want to save from Ubuntu in your Docker file? Do you save resources by starting by running your Linux as Ubuntu? Or can you use like Arch Linux instead? And
oh, you can do all those.
so would it take more resources?
Well, I mean, you saw Alpine Linux is a very, very small image that's using BusyBox. So disk-wise, it uses, like 12% of the space that Ubuntu used. But then even at runtime, all of those commands and stuff are much, much smaller than what ships with Ubuntu. So yeah, you could save your resources that way. It's very common to be using Alpine Linux for building your containers.
Okay.
I'm not using it because I just didn't want to get into yet another package manager, for installing my packages and stuff. And I like the packages that I have available. If I were running thousands of containers, I'd certainly be looking at how to make each image use the absolute minimum resources. But in my environment with 18 or 19 or 20 containers, it's not a problem for me.
I think I found the command. It's Docker stats. If you could go that over in that window, I think you'll see how much RAM you're using for each of those.
Docker stats.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and this is continuously running. Yeah. Well, right now I'm not doing much, am I?
Yeah. So I'm
using 5
it's
megs
sharing
of RAM.
a lot, probably.
Yeah. I'm barely touching this. Those things are sitting there idle. It's not like a virtual machine running in like VMware or VirtualBox where there's a whole operating system sitting there running with all kinds of things happening. Containers aren't like that. The thing that's running is my program that I put in it.
Yep.
Right. It just happens to be linked against its own set of libraries, but it's hitting the same kernel. It's interesting. They each got 56 PIDs, but they're all Apache, so that makes sense. There's not much net IO going on or anything like that. Let's see if I can over here. I can boost it up a little bit. I just keep hitting refresh.
So they're all using about the same RAM. They're all using 5 or 6 megabytes.
Yeah, within a few K of each,
Yeah.
Yeah. If I had built one with Alpine, and let's face it, there are much lower weight web servers. Apache is not exactly lean. I think I don't use Nginx, but I think that would be quite a bit smaller.
Yeah, I use that one. Yeah,
there's all kinds of ways to shrink it. Yeah. Yeah. And then, it's common now to not even have a web server. Like if you have a Node application, it's serving up HTTP.
Yeah.
Or a Python, if you have a Python web app, it's serving up the HTTP. You're not running that inside of a web server. So that's yet another way.
It's probably a smaller attack surface too.
Yes. Yeah. I do some Node stuff, and I'm just getting into a project where I'm going to be doing a lot more of it, and that will be running a standalone. Without it'll be running in a container, but it'll be running not inside of an Apache server or anything like that. But yeah, I'm just peeking at a lot of some really great comments in the chat. I like that.
Yeah, so one of my favorite Python teachers that runs the Talk Python podcast came out with an ebook on how he does his Python apps in production with Docker. And he kind of goes into a lot of pitfalls and explains just cool little tricks on
Cool.
how he actually ends up doing it. So you might find some use out of that.
Yeah, he probably ran into the pitfall of having his Python run as PID1. Things don't clean up nicely if you do that. Like I was running Bash as PID1. Things don't clean up that nicely when you do that. You really want some sort of an init process running that can reap orphan processes and stuff. That's like a lesson that everybody learns when they get into this. Man, there's some good stuff.
Yeah, I +1 the Talk Python folks. I listen to them all the time on all their shows.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I met him in person. He's cool. Michael Kennedy, real smart dude.
I got a question.
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody would want to do this, but is it possible to run a container inside of a container?
Oh, I don't know.
Technically, yes. You can also run a VM inside of a VM. At a certain point, I think it's about 4 levels down, it starts to break down and you can't do anything. Yes, you can run a container inside of a container. And the same way you can run a VM inside of a VM. But at a certain level, it starts to break down.
Yeah, I can imagine. And why would you do that when you could just run them side by side?
Right.
Yeah, well, one of the places is virtual hosting, VPS hosting type situations where you're basically paying, you might be paying your provider for a virtual machine, but inside that virtual machine, you want to play around. And you might also be paying your provider for a container. Your Linux that you get for your $5 a month might not be a VM at all. It might just be an Ubuntu container or a Linux container. And let's say you're inside that container and you want to play with containers. So you could do that.
You might also have a tool that uses containers to do its tricks. So, for instance, I use a builder in FreeBSD called Poudriere, and if you make Poudriere a jail, then when it does its builds, it spins up a bunch of other jails, child jails, and builds all the packages. And then, so you're building in a clean, fresh place and not spoiling your main system.
Yeah, neat. There's a lot there now, and it's just going to get better and better, I think. The ability to, I went from, I cut my data center bill by like 88%. Like I'm paying like 12% of what I used to pay when I had a data center, and that's largely because I've got a single VM with multiple containers running. And then there's other tricks like go for the annual plan instead of the monthly plan. That's a huge one. But those costs, my operating costs, went way down. I'm quite happy
Very
about
much
that.
the same. I
What's
went
that?
I went from having VMs scattered all over hosting providers. I rented a server. Everything is containers. It's jails with ZFS.
Yeah.
And my bill dropped even with renting the whole server.
Yep.
And the administration of different VMs scattered wherever various providers had one size and connectivity just went away.
Yep.
It's all containers on one host. I know it has gigabit. If I'm doing something stupid things will happen, and I blame me.
Yep.
It,
There's one more feature that I take advantage of now, and it's so much easier. It used to be that I would set up a production machine and I would install all the things I needed, all the utilities, all the libraries, all of the stuff. and you saw a lot of my applications written in Perl. So that means an awful lot of CPAN modules that aren't available as packages in the repo. So you end up with this system that is really difficult to upgrade. Right? You end up with this system that the real problem is if you install some packages using using apt-get, and you install other packages using something outside of that, like CPAN. Now you've got these modules installed, and if then you upgrade the underlying operating system, those modules may or may not work because libraries may have changed, and there's no correspondence or cooperation between like CPAN modules and Debian packages and the package manager. There's none of that. So you end up with this big system that's highly customized. And now let's say you want to move that to another machine. You want to a lot of times I don't upgrade the operating system in place. I'll build a whole new machine, and I'll go from Ubuntu 2004 to 2404. Now my install is really, really small. I install the operating system. I install a few things like OpenSSH, some networking utilities, and then I install Docker, and I'm done. Now I can just take my Docker Compose file, copy it over there. I might have some source trees and stuff that I want to install. I do that, and I spin up my Docker, and my application's up and running again without hacking around inside the operating system, and it's really wonderful.
Boy, that sounds like a great use case.
Yeah, it's worked very, very well for me.
Yep.
I was able to do something similar with so I was running everything on an old Dell Precision 7760 that because you could put all these like DDR4 modules in there. It has 4 slots, and I built a new machine for Prime Day, and I was able to just take my 2 NVMe drives out and put them into this machine, and mount that ZFS volume,
Nice.
and then boom, all my gels come right back up on a new, completely different machine that's insanely powerful. And I was like, yes.
Try that with Windows.
Yeah. All I had to do was change the name of the driver, the network drivers.
Yeah. It's amazing, and like in your case, jails, and in our case, containers.
Yeah.
It just makes that so much easier.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah.
Is, try and limit what's on the host to basically nothing.
Right. And then I've mentioned a couple of times I'm running my workload in Azure. I could very, very easily take that and move it to AWS or Google Cloud Services. All I got to do is spin up a VM and then take all my stuff and put it over there. And yeah, AWS has a different set of tools for configuring the VM and your networking, your network security groups and all that kind of stuff. But my application would run just as well on that machine as it does on the AWS, on the Azure machine.
Yeah, AWS has a interesting. They try and sell you on their managed services. Yep. So you can actually just take your container and upload it to their image directory. And then they'll run it for you on their Fargate.
That's another thing. I'm running my containers myself. I've got a VM to run them, but I could let Azure and Google and Amazon run those containers for me.
Yep. And then there's no host operating system at all.
Right. I rely, like my database, I need persistent storage, so I would have to deal with that. I imagine you could allocate some storage space and then tell the container to use that. But I haven't gone that far yet. I may at some point.
Yeah, in that Talk Python book, he moved from DigitalOcean to Hetzner, and he said his bill at Hetzner is way more affordable. DigitalOcean's got a lot more expensive over the years.
Yeah.
For your database, you might look at distributed databases.
Well, for me, I'm using Postgres. I'm not likely to move away from that. I did have managed Postgres at Azure. I let them manage it for me. But for them to do it with replication, you turn on replication and your costs exactly double. And it wasn't cheap to begin with. And the performance wasn't that great. But I went instead to just running my own Postgres. I allocated some disk space on that machine. I run my own Postgres. The performance is better. I replicate it, and everything's nice and good. And I cut my costs again by doing that. And the problem with Azure hosted Postgres is I couldn't create more replicas. Like I like to always keep a couple of replicas going so that I can take one of them and I can break the replica and promote it to master. And that's my test database. Like at any time I want, I can create a snapshot of the database just by grabbing that replica and making it a master. And now it's my development database. I do that and then I spin up another replica so it catches up. I couldn't do that when Azure was hosting it.
So one thing about distributed systems, there was a really good talk at EuroBSDCon this last year that Dave Kottlehuber gave, and he was just talking about how 25 years of designing resilient systems, some of the lessons learned, and how it's really like all the theory that goes into how these things actually replicate and like all the different ways that it can go wrong and how hard the problem really is, and how there's all these different like camps on what the right way to do it is. It's pretty good.
I think
man,
the end point of the talk was databases were a mistake.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell the doctors and the patients that. I'm taking.
All right,
a
they're
summary.
taking us out. We'll see you later.
All right, Joe. Thanks a lot. We'll
Been
see you.
great.
And it's
Bye.
it's 9 o'clock. I'm kind of turning into a pumpkin myself. I've copied a bunch of stuff from the chat, and I will I'll go through it, especially that summary from, I think it's from Victor's Otter.ai thing. That summary looks really good. It's got some action items on it that we need to that I need to look at. So I appreciate that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Oh, Jim, just a note. I think I noticed previously that if you don't view this Otter AI thing and capture it while it's happening, it used to be anyway that if after the meeting ends, shortly thereafter, you have to have either a paid Otter account or something like that. You lose the summary, basically.
Yeah.
Just want to let you know.
Up by that little close chat button and the pop out chat button, there's a more 3 dots, and you can just save the whole chat.
That's what I want to do. Save chat. Cool. Where did it save it?
Mine went to my downloads.
Yeah, I'm looking at downloads. I'm not seeing it in mine.
Text file called, I don't see them on either. It said it went to downloads.
It probably saves it in Zoom.
Oh, yeah, documents. It's documents, Zoom, the name of the meeting, and then meeting saved chat, new chat, text.
I'm not sure what you're talking about now.
Go to the documents folder, and there's a Zoom folder inside documents.
Yeah, okay.
And then it dropped it in there.
Oh, I think I'm gonna leave.
It was great seeing everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for coming.
Thanks.
Man, we had a full meeting.
Thanks. Great meeting.
I appreciate it.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for sharing everything. I learned so much from you, Michael. Appreciate you.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure none of
The
it
whole
made you
text.
happier, though. Thank
you.
Don't underestimate yourself.
Good night, gentlemen.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys. I'm gonna sign off. That means all you guys got to leave. So see you next month.
Okay. Bye.